The virtual world is here, and it does not look like it's going to go away anytime soon. And I genuinely think that a lot of people are spending more time in the virtual world than the real world. And if you actually think about that, you think of 24 hours in the day. Say we sleep for 8 hours of the day, and the 16 hours remaining in the day. You see people with 6, 8, 9, 10 plus hours on their screen. So that literally means they are spending more time in the virtual world than they are in the real world, and that's without taking a lot of other things into consideration of what they are doing with their time, which is inevitably probably not being productive. TV, other kinds of forms of media that doesn't count as a screen. A lot of people, we are glued to our screens, we are sat down most of the times in our day. And something that me and my friend spoke about the other day was this kind of hustle culture that we've seen over the last few years, especially from the likes of Tate, and kind of self-improvement taking itself to another level over the last few years. And something that I've seen is a lot of young men are not happy and fulfilled. They've been told to chase goals such as $10,000 a month, getting to 100k bench press, maybe sleeping with X amount of girls, as their goals. And this is something that they have realised that is not going to be fulfilling to them. Maybe they've somewhat achieved this goal to a certain extent, or even actually gone all the way and achieved these goals. But you don't have to even go all the way. You realise this quite early on, that once you make progress and get to these types of goals, that, you know, they're still kind of superficial in a way. They're not something that's going to bring you happiness in your life anyway. That there's probably other things out there that you were maybe even doing before, and you realise maybe the things I was doing before, the things that I was told when I was younger, they might have actually brought me, happiness, such as, starting a family, being with one person, and spending time with your friends, spending time with nature, doing work on something you care about, having autonomy over your life, the things that actually matter. And you've been fed countless lies because of social media, because of people in your ear constantly, and you have to ask yourself, once you even achieve these goals, because I've been there and achieved these goals that are similar to this, and thought that would bring me more fulfillment, happiness, my quality of life would improve, and none of this has really improved my life whatsoever. And then even when you do, you're like, then what? Because if it's something that doesn't do that, it doesn't make you any happier in your life, you don't feel any more fulfilled, and even your quality of life doesn't necessarily improve really anything. And I think for a lot of people, once you are to a certain extent, especially financially comfortable, your quality of life is going to be very minuscule. And I think this is what a lot of people probably need to think about when they're navigating their career life, when they're chasing that extra bit of money, which, yes, might improve your quality of life by this much in terms of making it a bit more easier, but you're probably going to be working longer hours, you're going to have more stress, you're going to probably be doing roles and responsibilities that not necessarily that you want to do, or even suited towards, and you're just kind of chasing that carrot dangling on a stick above you. And you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Because you've been told to, and we always try and bite off more than we can chew. And I think a lot of this is because our ego does get in the way of this. But again, this is a bit of a side note from this video, and I wanted to make this video because I want to see you be happy, I want to see you be fulfilled, I want to see you do things that you care about, and I want you to be waking up every day and thinking, okay, I feel good to be here, I have things that I want to work towards today, and I'm seeing myself making progress. That is the main things that we want to see in our lives, and I want to see that for you. And I saw my mum get very ill, and she said that she just wanted me to be happy. And again, sounds very cliche, simple thing to say, but what does this mean when someone who knows their time is very limited tells you this? Well, to me, it tells me that they probably weren't too happy themselves. They probably didn't do the things that brought them happiness in their life. They didn't do the most fulfilling things in their life. And this is what a lot of people say. If you look at the case studies of people on palliative care, the end of life care, they pretty much all say the same things, that they kind of, took life too seriously. They didn't spend time on things they actually cared about. And then they get to this stage and then they tell everyone else, just be happy, do what you care about, and, go for it, chase your goals, whatever it may be. Stop thinking too much about other people and all of this. Be a lot more carefree, because they finally figure it out right at the end of our life. And unfortunately, like I say, a lot of people are wasting their time with the virtual world these days. I've personally drastically reduced the amount of time I've spent on social media. There'll be quite often a few days where I will completely go without social media. And you know what is the correlation when I'm not on social media for those whole days? Well, I feel so much at peace. I feel so much, greater self-esteem. I'm not, worried and anxious, and all of these feelings that are pretty much always negative attached to social media, the metaverse, whatever you want to call it. They're all there when the more time you spend on that, the kind of heightened those feelings and emotions are. I tend to find it myself anyway. And I think when I see people, when I speak to people, they very much agree. I'm sure you can feel the same if you've spent a lot of time growing up in this generation, which pretty much we all have, and we've all been conditioned to do so, and built that habit of thinking, this is something I do. I spend hours, 2-3 hours plus a day, like I say, some people 6, 7, 8, on social media doing these things that doesn't make us feel good, doesn't improve our life, doesn't get us anywhere. It actually takes us away from everything, takes us away from the moment, which is the most important thing we have in our life. And we are constantly focused on the future and also our past. And like I say, I think a lot of people, even when you take away social media from this, let's look at TV, reading newspapers more, historically, we believe that this is our reality. We believe the world is how we see it on social media. It's very kind of skewed perception of things, and what sells is negativity. People feed off negativity, and that's how it's always been. And unfortunately, for the vast majority of people, it's how it's always going to be. Unfortunately, for yourself, you don't have to be one of those people who feeds off it. You can be like, it's happening, and a lot of people think you don't care and stuff, but your life is way too short to be caring about things that makes no difference to your life. At the end of the day, you can't care too much about everything in your life, and that's what social media, the virtual world wants you to believe. They want you to have an opinion on every single thing in your life, but you don't need to. It's just going to cause you a greater headache, and it's clearly stuff that nearly all of us, we don't know enough about nearly 99% of what's going on in the world. And also, what do we miss out a lot with social media? What do we miss out a lot with the news, the TV? What do they not tell us? Well, they don't tell us all the positive things going on in the world, do they? Because I can assure you, once you step out of the virtual world and go out in the real world and speak to positive people who have really taken a step back from social media, probably don't use it a lot at all or anything, especially if they're a lot older, they have not been in that generation at all, they'll tell you all these positive things. They have a positive mindset, they have a positive attitude and all of these stuff, which is the people you need to surround yourself with, as you will end up getting, you'll be the crabs in the bucket, all feeding off this negativity. You heard this story going on in the news, hear what's happening here and here, and it's bad, isn't it? Be like, yeah, and be like, that person will tell you about their problems, you'll tell them about your problems, and you go back and back, and then you come out of this interaction, you feel even worse than you did before. You're probably already feeling pretty negative, but you feel even more negative about the world, about your circumstances, how unfair things are. But again, what's the point? It doesn't make your life any better. And like I say, I believe there's way more positive things going on in the world, but we just don't hear about them because it doesn't sell on social media. It doesn't get the clicks, does it? It doesn't get the eyeballs on the screen. It doesn't do any of these types of things what social media profits off, and what the metaverse, pretty much how it works. That's just how it is. And like I say, you need to take yourself out of this, because when I've taken the sustained period, and by a sustained period, that might even be, 3 days, a week or so, especially like going a week without any social media is extremely rare. There's not many people that you will meet, especially under the age of 25, 30, who are going to be doing that whatsoever. And you feel a different person. You feel you have a completely different view on the world, and we all have a view on the world. We all see things completely differently. And it's how we choose to perceive the world, and we all want to perceive it as a positive place. But how are you ever going to perceive it as a positive place when you're constantly surrounding yourself with negative media on social media, negative media in the news, in newspapers, wherever you look, people you speak to, you just can't afford to spend your time with people like that, because they're going to drag you down. And once you kind of realize that and be like, okay, I'm going to pretty much make my whole environment in the virtual world, and also more importantly in the real world, positive, and that's going to improve your life. That's going to completely change the way you see the world when you surround yourself in that environment. Because like I say, I've seen it a lot of times, especially like I say, when I've took myself away from that for a period of time. You feel good. You feel that life can be beautiful, offers a lot of good things. There's a lot of good people out there. You know, you feel good working towards your goals. You feel like a lot more optimistic, and, you know, things become a lot easier in your life. It doesn't feel like, you know, a chore to do things. Your just whole mindset changes, but you have to take yourself away from this, because like I say, I think social media and kind of the virtual whole stratosphere is only going to go one way, and that's going to increase, especially amongst young people, are going to spend more time on this, whether that be phones, laptops, the way they learn, and TV. All of these types of things are only going to increase. I see in the kind of grand scale of things, and at the end of the day, there's only so much you can do about it, but you are in control of how you live your life and your own destiny, so to speak. So you have a choice to make and how you want to live your life, and I think you'll be far better off, far more happy, far more fulfilled by living in the real world as much as you possibly can. You know, I understand there's a time and place for social media, and if you can use these things to your advantage, that's what they're there for. And if people did, we would be the happiest, we would be the most fulfilled people in our generation if we used everything that has been invented to our advantage. But unfortunately, a lot of people indulge and use them for the wrong reasons, and that's why we are where we are and how things are. But hopefully this video has been insightful for yourself, and yeah, I just want it to be encouraging for you to, you know, chase real life success, chase real goals, whatever that is for you, figure them out and spend time meditating on that. And that's the most important thing you can do, really reduce the time you are spending in the virtual world, because it is killing your soul and not getting you any further to where you want to be. If you need any more guidance on this, on how to break free and get into the real world and to live a more fulfilled and happy life for yourself, whatever that may be, on your own terms, my one-to-one personal coaching link will be in the description below. Tap that and like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video now. Take care.